So about 2 years ago, I made some videos, probably a dozen, maybe a few less, about installing a Megasquirt into this car and mostly wiring it up because that's really the most time-consuming and intimidating part. So I wanted to make a video, almost 2 years later, give or take, of where the car is today, status update on it, what I wish I'd done the first time, what I've changed since then, stuff like that. So the videos that I had made then, I rewatched one or two of them just to see. They were pretty information dense, they were pretty technical and to the point. But yeah, these days the car is different. The Megasquirt's still there, it's the same ECU, the wiring is all the same, but the rest of the car has actually changed a lot. So really, the car is now, it always has been my daily driver. So back when I made those videos, this was actually my only car. Now I have a 951 project, and I have a few other cars that keep me busy. This is still the car that I drive every day. In fact, it's still scalding hot. I just drove it over from work about an hour ago. That really speaks, I think, to doing a good job of installing your ECU of choice if you decide to go that route, and really says that you can still modify your car like this and be able to drive it every day. In fact, I couldn't have done this if I hadn't have installed this, because the stock electronic system was just so unreliable. And when it was my only car, it was terrible. I had to plan my whole day around driving somewhere in case it broke down or didn't start. You guys all who have 944s that I'm talking about. So the meat of what's changed, as far as probably, if you're watching this video, you probably want to see the Megasquirt stuff. On the surface, you can see these wires here. So in the last video I made, I don't really remember. I haven't watched all of them, in a year or two, rewatched them. But I got some cut to length MSD wires. These are either 8mm or 9mm, 8.5mm superconductor. And these are, I want to say it was either 8 or 10 feet or something like that. But it was about $60 for everything. That means 8 foot of this wire, these boots. These are LS coil specific boots. They have that, if you ever seen a LS series engine, that's what they actually look like coming off the coils, and you need those because of the way they clip on. I guess like the socket on them is a certain way. You can't just use off the shelf standard I guess like generic coil boots. So, and then you have to crimp on the terminals yourself, and I thought I had a tool somewhere. There's like a little tool you put in your vise, and it actually like crimps the connector onto the core of the wire. So all that stuff together was about $60. That's actually not that bad. I think a set of 944 stock, distributor wires, something like maybe even more, I don't know. But so these are pretty cool. These are from eBay. I just bent them back. These were like $2 shipped, something stupid like that. I just kind of found them. I don't even remember what the listing was called, but they're just like generic spark plug holders, and they happen to bolt up just your normal 10mm bolts for the fuel rail, and they just kind of nicely hold them there. I think it's a good solution. So I originally wanted to add a heat shield below these coils because obviously the headers are right there for the exhaust. What I'd done is actually ended up wrapping the headers and putting some a thermal coating on them. Nothing fancy like Swain Tech or whatever the market brand ones are, but a little bit, better than nothing, I guess. The coils are fine. They're the same ones. I literally haven't. I took them off once to when I had the headers off and on. Besides that, everything's pretty much the same. All this wiring. When I made those videos 2 years ago, this is like literally all the same everywhere. The same sensors. I haven't had to replace any sensors. There's a little bit of dust on everything now, but everything's pretty much the same. This car's had a timing belt, 2 clutch jobs. Don't ask. One of them involved me dropping a bolt into the bell housing because I'm a moron. A lot of just cosmetic stuff. Just stuff was being 30 years old, and it was time to replace it. So it's gotten a water pump. The car in general has actually kind of come a long way since I moved out, got a garage, and started a full-time job about 2 years ago, a little bit less. So I put a 3-bar FPR on it just because at one point I was looking at actually supercharging this car like every moron who has an NA and thinks that they can make it better. But that didn't really go through. The injectors are still the same. I'm probably going to put a stock FPR back on it because I have 3 of them. But I'll probably put the 3 bar on the 951. That's a long story where that car is. I won't even get into it. That's a project for sure. But everything's pretty much the same as it was. I've cleaned up a lot of the crap. If you saw my videos last time, it was pretty disgusting looking in here. So another thing is, I can't remember. I kind of remember in those videos I'd had like some sort of ghetto, one of those like K&N like cone pod filters here. It took me a while to get around to replacing that just because I wasn't really DDing the car. I had a 4Runner I could drive. And so this is the same, I think this is the one, I don't think I've ever replaced this. This is probably the same one that I had when I made those videos. So this is just a standard GM sensor. Yeah, you can see the 2 wires. One goes to Microsquirt. Actually, they both do. But one's a signal ground and one is just the sensor like output wire. That goes back into this big harness. And all this is, I got this from a company called Bell Engineering. It was $40, and all it is you tell them the length you want and the diameter you want, and they'll make it for you. And it comes with this NPT. Sorry, the lighting isn't very great at all. But it's basically, there's no welding required. They send this to you and it just threads right in. And then I just got a silicone coupler. I don't think I paid more than $5 for that. Just a generic coupler. Matched the OD. Obviously, when I ordered this, I made sure that the diameter was a match to the stock plenum boot here. And then over here to adapt it to the airbox, all I did was I got. So you know how people that have those cone filters on the end of their AFM, the AFM bolts to the airbox here, of course, on a stock car. So what people do is they'll get these adapters that bolt to the AFM and then has a flange on it, and then that uses a hose clamp to attach the pod filter. So I actually flip that around backwards because the bolt pattern is the same between the AFM and the AFM and the airbox. So I figured I'd get one of those and just bolt this side of it to the airbox, and then this side of it has the flange on it, so it's just backwards, and then that goes underneath the J-boot. Sorry, this coupler, and it was such a tight fit I didn't even need a hose clamp. So I can use the stock airbox. The cone filter, nothing was really wrong with it, but like the whole hot air intake thing. But yeah, I mean the air temps are always what you'd expect. They're not it's drawing from the fender well, so I think that's a good solution. This whole thing right here is probably $55 total, at including this adapter and the hardware. You want to use lock nuts. So these are bolts here, and then the nuts are on the inside. So I used nylon insert lock nuts, Nylox, for that. So obviously, you don't want a nut flying through. So as far as the wiring inside the car, I don't think I really did much. I did clean up this battery terminal. That was annoying me for a long time because I had some 10 gauge wiring coming out to feed that interior wiring panel, and it was just kind of ghetto rigged to this positive terminal. So I got this at, I want to say it was AutoZone or something, and it was $10. And it has these sockets in it. I don't know why you can really see that, but you get the idea. There's these little grub screws you just tighten with an Allen wrench, and all your wiring can just plug into that without having a bunch of little crimp-on eye sockets or whatever. So I thought that was a reasonable thing to do. Rest of the car, I do not have the wiring panel taken down, but I can kind of show you what it looks like on the inside now. So there are a few things. You can see the parts car kick panel here. I had the dash actually redone by Classic 9. So in my last videos, if you look closely, I think I saw that fiberglass dash that I made installed, and it looked really, really crappy. Like right around wherever there was like a corner like that, or around the binnacle, it looked terrible. So I'm really glad I invested in that. That thing looked terrible before. But you can see like the difference between that and this. I'm not going to take it down because it looks exactly as how it did before, but I added another relay. I think in my videos I had an orange relay sticking off for the ignition coils. I actually took that off and added 2 more black relays. I forget what one of them was for. One of them was, oh yeah, so it goes main relay, fuel pump relay, and then there's a relay for the coils, because the coils actually, normally they draw current actually through the ignition switch, which, I mean, for 4 wasted spark coils, I think that's kind of a lot of load to be putting on a crappy, like, Volkswagen, if you have an early car ignition switch. So I had a relay for those just to be sure. And then I had a 4th coil relay for the cooling fan. So that's something I integrated to the car. The standalone actually now controls the cooling fan. So from my smartphone or laptop, I can program when they come on, like at what temperature, which is pretty cool because I live in Houston and I actually only run one cooling fan in this car. There's actually, one of the fans isn't even installed in the fan shroud. So it's actually really cool. I can the engine stays below the 1/3 mark or whatever, or 1/3 of the way, because it's an early car. It goes like that. It's like, it never goes higher than 1/3, even with one cooling fan in the Texas summer. So I like that a lot. So there's a relay for that, just so Microsquirt can control it, because Microsquirt can turn a relay on or off, but it can't control like the entire fan. That's a ton of power draw, so you have to use a relay kind of as a middleman. So if you look closely, I mean, obviously, like, there's, you know, I don't think I ever showed the kick panel in my old videos actually installed. It was always kind of sitting on the floor. So this is kind of what it looks like. So yeah, you can't see it. Yeah. So that's about it. I still have, this is for tuning. I do tune the car still when I drive it around and I make a change. I added a cam advance key to the camshaft, just a +4 degree. So I had to change the fuel map a little bit to account for that. And I've done a few other mods to the car that I did tune for, but nothing really substantial. The only thing I did engine-wise that I actually had to adjust the VE table for was that cam advance key. But you know, as the seasons change and the ambient air temperature changes throughout the year, you have to, you know, tweak your tune as time goes on, because you know, your air temperature calibration and stuff. It's a speed density tune, so it's very sensitive to that kind of thing. So this is still here. Like, I think in my old videos, this was still here. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna tuck all this wiring, and I just never did it. I probably will one day, but I haven't had the interior out since then. I put the seat back in shortly after. But I mean, it doesn't really bother me. I can't really see it when I'm sitting over there. But besides that, I don't think in my videos the tack was ever hooked up. So the tack was one thing that I didn't really, it kind of stopped me for a while, because there was no real, you know, information online. There's plenty of information for later 944s and 944 turbos and whatnot. But for an early car, you're always kind of on your own for wiring, because it was just this kind of like adopted Volkswagen Audi wiring that was just kind of shoved under there, and I don't know, it was always kind of a mess and kind of a pain to work on. It still is. So for that, what I had to do, so Microsquirt has a tack out wire, which I probably showed at some point in those videos, and you can set that wire up in Microsquirt through your Tuner Studio software, which, by the way, if you ever do this, make sure you spend the $60 to register it. If you don't register it, like the Pro version or whatever, you can't auto-tune, which I think is one of the best things about this ECU, is you can auto-tune the fuel map, which is great. It saves you a lot of time. You change your car a little bit, you do something to it, and you have to retune it. All you got to do is, you know, plug your laptop and hit auto-tune and drive away, and you're good. So for the tack wiring, so I just remembered that. Let me go back over here. Yeah, that's going to be a while before this car is driving. So I don't know if I ever talked about... Oh, the car got Euro bumpers. I don't think I ever went into any detail on the actual car during any of those videos, but this is the car. It's the same car I had back then. It has Euro bumpers front and rear. Sorry, I'm just proud of it. There you go. 951 splitter. Showing my colors. Showing my man. Alright, so tack wiring. So there's this connector here that you have to run a few things into. And 2 years later, I still haven't covered this up. I actually probably... Oh, look, this is still... I think I totally forgot to put that on. That's been there for 2 years. I literally I never taped it like on there. Doesn't really matter. But so here is I cut this off of a stock harness, I think from the junkyard or something. So this part goes into your car to the fuse box, which on an early car, of course, is like right down there, below the steering column. And then this half of it, this is, I think it's 9 pins, if I remember right. It's 3 by 3. So some of these aren't used, but some of them are. And the reason you need to have them on there is because there are some things in your car, like, I'm trying to remember. Oh, the oil sender, the oil pressure sender. Just that little gold-looking thing down there. One of those obviously tells you the oil pressure. The other one tells you, well, it's a warning light for the dash. So if you're low on oil pressure, it'll turn on a dummy light. So that has 2 wires, and I think that's what this is. Zip tied out of the way. Professional work. And that goes up. And the problem is, the reason I even bring it up is because your stock harness, which I've obviously removed it and replaced it with this new one, actually has the runs for that sensor as well as the temperature sensor, like the water temperature, the coolant temp for the gauge, which is different than the coolant temperature for the ECU on early and late cars. So it has those going through it. So if you remove the stock harness and you go to a new harness, those sensors have nowhere to go, and so your dash signals like the water temperature and the oil pressure will get nothing. So what you have to do is actually, it's pretty easy. You just take like spade connectors or eyes, whatever they are, like they're off the shelf, and you just take just generic like wire from like, you know, Radio Shack, and you just wire them, and then they have to go into there. That's all it is. There's nothing really tricky. You just have to kind of recreate, complete the circuit, so to speak, those connections. So I posted the pinout for this connector on Renlist. So I had a build thread that I had made. I think if you Google Porsche 944 Microsquirt build thread, I think the name of the thread was Summer Build Thread Microsquirt Install, or something like that. So if you see that, it's on one of those pages, probably like halfway through. I don't remember. So I didn't make the chart. Some guy did who was swapping an engine, if I remember correctly. So that's what you need to know. But getting back to the tack signal, so the tack is this green wire. Sorry again for the bad lighting, but use your imagination. It's a green wire that goes in, and there's a wire in here that goes, let's see if I can remember this. So the DME, when it controls the stock coil, actually pulses the ground through here, this thick green wire. Sorry, you can see a light green wire, sort of, right? That one right at the top. But right below it, you can't see it because of the lighting. It's a thicker green wire. It's like a darker, like forest green, like the crayon, whatever. That goes in. What happens is, so the DME will actually pulse that wire from this side, because remember, your DME harness would plug in here normally. And what happens is that thick green wire goes back through the car and comes out over there by the coil. But this light green wire that you see coming off of it, that you can actually see, that goes to the tack. So what happens is the tack actually reads off of the coil firing. So what I had to do was take the tack wire and put it through so that it comes out there. And so the stock coil has been replaced, of course, by the wasted spark coil. So all I did was come over here, and you can like find the wiring, whatever, and it pops out right here. It's one of these. Maybe it's, oh, here it is. Yeah. God damn it. Okay. So this is from here back is stock wiring. Then I spliced on this connector from like an Acura, or I don't remember. This wire here is that green wire. I just put a peg leg, like amputated it. And then this wire is 12 volts that would go to the coil. Now it goes to like something else in the engine, I forget. So you can just cap that off there. That's just a ground. You don't need it anymore. What you do need though is that thinner green wire that you can actually see. That goes back into the car. So now Microsquirt pulses a tack signal via that light green wire. It comes into that connector, and then Part of it goes to the coil, doesn't go anywhere because it's capped off. Part of it goes inside the car, and that's what lights the tack up. And then for the tack itself, all you have to do is give it, I think, power. Like there's a little connector. Sorry, this video has gotten really long, but there's been a lot to share. So the car definitely needs a thorough vacuuming. Here it is. So there's this connector. This took me a long time to figure out. Like I had to ask a lot of people who could read wiring diagrams better than I could. So this half of it is stock. You don't mess with that. The other half of it, I actually didn't even use the other half. I just stuck a like spade connector inside it because it was like the right size. This is just switch 12 volts. I got that off of my kick panel on that side of the car. And that goes to, if you look at it, it looks like it goes to the solid black wire. Yeah, the solid black wire on this connector gets plus 12 volts when the key is on, so switch 12 volts, and that will power the tack. So when you remove the stock harness for the car, the DME, which is like normally up there, obviously like the main connector comes off, and there's a little like branch coming off of it that would normally plug into there. And that's normally what powers your tack, is actually via the DME. So when you remove the DME harness, you have to recreate that power source. So once you do that, and you run that green wire to the right spot, your tack will work perfectly. And it's actually way more responsive than the stock coil-powered or coil signaled tack was. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, everything works in the car. Only thing that doesn't really work, because I don't really care, is this economy gauge, because my injectors are not stock. If they were stock, there would be a simple way to make Microsquirt power it, but I mean, like, could really care less about that. But yeah, the wideband is still there. I thought about replacing that with a different wideband, but honestly, nothing's really wrong with this one. I added a GoPro that's powered by, I think, the radio. I added a new radio that has Bluetooth and hands-free and all that. But yeah, there's a GoPro, not a GoPro, what am I saying? A dash cam. And then a cup holder, because I'm an American, I need that. I think that's about it. That's where the Microsquirt car is almost 2 years later. And I hope that helped, guys. And if you have any questions about installing this, let me know. I'm still in the community. I'm still engaged online and just through local buddies. So give me a holler.